Welcome to Book Me Podcast, sponsored by Nimbus Publishing. I'm Lindsay Gloade-Raining Bird. Join me as we journey through contemporary Canadian literature, reading as much as we can and chatting with authors, illustrators, and other bookish folk, celebrating our dynamic, diverse, and vibrant national literary scene as we go. So grab a snack, get cozy, break that binding, dog-ear those pages. Let's dig into it. Today, I'm joined by YA legend Jo Treggiari to talk about her new book, Heartbreak Homes, a locked room murder mystery told from multiple points of view. When a back-to-school rager at an abandoned model home takes a chaotic turn and a popular senior ends up dead, everyone is a suspect. Kara, protector of her pack of homeless lost girls, there for the easy mark rich kids. Martin, recently exiled to a new school in life after his father loses everything in a bad development deal. And Frankie, my personal favorite, normally not a partier, follows her newly popular best friend there as emotional support. Now the three teens have to work together to find out what really happened before one of them goes down for the crime, or worse, because a killer is still out there tying up loose ends. With everything you need in a thriller, a tight plot, nuanced characters, and a few great twists, Heartbreak Homes is set to be a hit. It's the best thriller I've read this year, and beyond that, at its center, it just has a really soft heart. Hi, Jo. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, that was such a lovely intro.
Oh, thank you. I just love the book so much.
I'm so happy to hear that.
So what's a locked room mystery, and what made you want to write one?
So a locked room mystery is sort of a classic mystery trope. It's when a murder victim is discovered in a locked room, So first there's the mystery of how did the person get out, which is probably the question that would leap to someone's mind the first. It sort of encapsulates like the murder in a way that's kind of interesting. I also like the idea of it being at a party where all these things are happening outside this room and no one is aware that there's actually a murder occurring, and then the murder is discovered. So that's sort of an exciting plot beginning, I guess.
I thought so, yeah, because it's hard to keep track if you're at a party, who's going where, what's happening.
Yeah. The other great thing about sort of picking a setting like a house that is actually a physical containment for a bunch of people. When you're writing a mystery, this would be a bunch of suspects, potential suspects, and potential victims, and potential murderers, is the fact that there's all this stuff going on that's usually alcohol involved and sometimes other things that alter perceptions, that there's all those hidden currents of emotion and everything running under the surface. And so it makes for this really complex assortment of people, sort of bouncing off each other and like coming into conflict. And it's a really great way also with all that sort of contained chaos to sow your clues and your red herrings and your misdirections and all of those things as well, and to introduce your characters.
Yeah, who are the three main characters, Kara, Frankie, and Martin. You can tell, reading the book, how much you cared about those characters. Were you always going to showcase those three, or was there ever a point where you thought maybe one of the other characters might deserve a perspective?
Mm-hmm. It was always going to be those three. I love those characters. I always do a lot of backstory and development on my characters, and most of it doesn't make it into the book, but it means that I really know them deeply and intensely. I love those three characters because they really have nothing to do with one another. But that's the other thing about setting the murder at a party, is that I throw people into close contact with one another. Frankie and Martin have a little bit of a previous contact through the school newspaper, but now that Martin's at a different school, they don't really know each other, and they never did really know each other. And then Kara is a complete, like, out of left field addition to that social group because she's completely outside it.
Yeah, her and her friends are just there for the opportunity.
Right. Yes,
all
they're
these rich
opportunists.
kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're there to see what they can get. Yeah, and they're all motivated by different things, which also goes into sort of revealing character and developing character. So for that reason, I love writing multiple POV because I think for the reader, you're getting a far fuller, three-dimensional perception of what's going on. But it also includes all of our sort of ingrained biases that we don't really think about, but we're all guilty of having these sort of biases. So I can kind of look at the same scene from like different POVs. The reader gradually like sort of sees where like a character might have like a bias or a prejudice, and it actively involves the reader because they sort of have to like parse through this information that they're getting from three different places and decide like what's true, what's real, what they should trust and what they shouldn't trust.
Yeah, you did a really great job of that, of also sharing the information in a way that you're kind of not being told as much as just discovering. You feel like you're really part of it.
Yeah, well, part of writing a mystery, right, is not like hitting your reader over the head with like, here's a clue, here's a clue, here's a clue, or here's like a misdirection, but like giving them all the information in a way that feels like organic and then like letting them sort of come to their own conclusions. A lot of mystery readers, once they get to the end, they go back to the beginning and they look for those clues, and those clues had better be there. And so part of like writing that kind of murder mystery is you actually write sort of from the beginning to the end, but then you also write from the end to the beginning. And you sort of go back and forth to make sure that you are not cheating the reader in any kind of way. It should all make sense and they should feel satisfied, surprised, but not cheated of anything.
When I was reading it at the very beginning, the opening scene of being the big party and then following it through all these different scenes and settings were so vivid and cinematic. My immediate thought was, this should be a movie. Did you have that thought when you were making it?
No, I think it's just how I write. I tend to write cinematically. So one of the things I do with all of my books is I sort of draw maps. Because when I'm writing, even if I'm writing from third person, I still situate myself in that character whose point of view I'm narrating at that time. I feel like I physically have to be able to visualize where me in that character is actually located at that specific time. It just helps me have it clear in my own mind. And so in a weird way, I'm like looking through the eyes of my character and moving around with them. In a classic mystery, there's a lot of setup. The first murder doesn't happen until like page 48 or something. That's kind of a long time for the reader to wait. But by having like three different narratives, and then also by like the way I write, where I situate myself, so therefore I'm situating the reader, I feel like it keeps the pace like tight because the reader's sort of moving around, like seeing everything from like three different pairs of eyes. So it's like an immersive experience. And I'm also giving them all the information that they need to solve the murder themselves.
Definitely, yeah. I still had a couple twists where I was surprised, which I love. I love reading a thriller and being surprised. There's nothing I hate more than knowing exactly what's going to happen and it pans out exactly as I think it's going to. So you did a great job with that too. But something I really want to know is, you've written all YA novels so far. What's it like living in that teenage brain? Because you do a really great job, especially in this book, of walking that line between like the authenticity of a teenage voice without getting bogged down in too much slang or a lot of shorthand that they think teenagers speak in or type in or anything. And I found like there wasn't that in your book, and I loved that about it.
Yeah, that's a scary one for me because I'm a long way from being a teenager. But I usually don't go to like slangy or tech heavy because those things become obsolete so quickly. And also there's nothing sadder than like an old person trying to talk like a teenager and what they think they talk like. I'm more interested in like what their motivations are, like what are their goals, what are their fears, so that comes out of my research and like how I develop character. And if I'm super clear on motivation, then the way they act and think and speak is clear to me as well. And I really try not to overthink it because I love hearing from younger people, younger readers, that they love my characters and that they feel genuine and real to them. As a writer, that's what I'm trying to do, right? Is to write the truth as much as I can. But if I think about it too much, I'm scared that I'll sort of lose that little bit of confidence I have in writing as accurately as I possibly can when I'm portraying teens.
One of the things I loved about Heartbreak Homes was the representation of a queer storyline that wasn't trauma-filled or doomed. Was it important to you to have that positive, joyful representation.
Absolutely. So important to me. My last 3 books have had like queer characters in them, which makes me really happy. I want to have queer characters in my books. It's personally important to me. But I also want to be able to give them happy endings. That's also important to me. Yeah, and I just want it to be, you know, they're queer, it's no big deal. You know, it's no more a big deal than that they have brown eyes to me. It's just a part of who they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we need that representation in books for sure.
Yeah.
Especially YA.
Yeah. It's, you know, having empowered female characters or female identifying characters in my books has always, from the very beginning, has always been important to me. But, you know, it's funny. It feels easier to have queer characters in my books now because it feels like it's more accepted. But I remember when I was going to make one of my characters in Blood Will Out a lesbian, I remember thinking like, should I, you know, should I have a gay character? It felt kind of risky to me. And now I'm just like, whatever, you know, there's 4 lesbians in Heartbreak Homes. Just deal with it.
More. Add them all in. Yeah.
Yeah. More gay.
The gayer, the better, in my opinion. So I first talked to you for The Coast about Blood Will Out, which is firmly a horror novel. And then you have Ashes, which is post-apocalyptic. The Grey Sisters has a plane crash and a survivalistic cult. And then this is a straightforward murder mystery. So that's a real span of themes. What genre or theme did you most enjoy writing?
Oh, I love writing all of them. I think I just, I like a challenge. So those books have all been challenges for me to write. And I think the books that I want to write I like to write page-turner, suspenseful thrillers within that sort of genre. There's the psych thriller, there's the survivalist thriller, there's the post-apocalyptic, and there's the murder mystery. I use them as like vehicles though to talk about like other things that are like really important to me. So Heartbreak Homes actually is about like home and what constitutes home, and is home a place or is it the people? It's about found family and shared community and all those things. So I'm not cheating by using like suspense thrillers like a vehicle, but that's sort of how I look at it. Like for me, I want to write books that are like about a lot more than that, so that there's stuff to think about and stuff to talk about afterwards. You know, that hopefully they're characters that are going to stay with you. Like they all join together to solve this mystery, but they all have their motivations are like complex because people are complex. Teenagers are complex.
Speaking as a reader, I didn't want to let go of some of those characters. They were really great.
They're alive to me, you know, so I want the reader to feel like the characters like continue on with their lives afterwards. So I don't ever like wrap up everything in like a neat bow, but I sort of hint at the direction that things are going to go in.
Are you ever tempted to continue on with the same characters?
I mean, I'm pretty interested in Kara. I have to say, I was so happy to hear that Frankie was your favorite.
I loved her.
Yeah. I mean, I love Frankie as well. I love Martin, but Kara is like the closest to my heart. She's the autobiographical one. She's the one who's really based on some of my own experiences and the kind of women that I knew and how I was. But I could see continuing her in The Grey Sisters. So many people wanted to know what happened to Ariel. That was the character that she's the one who grew up in the survivalist cult, and people were super interested in her. I usually don't think in like duology or series. I put everything into the book and then I don't really have anything left. And then I'm, you know, excited by the shiny new idea that I have. And I usually pursue that. But maybe someday I'll have like leisure time to be able to revisit some of my characters.
Is it like one big universe? Would you ever make any of the characters from different books meet each other in a new story?
Possibly, although fan fiction, I love fan fiction. So
do you have fan fiction written?
I don't write it personally. I mean, I guess I kind of did. When I was first starting out, I was like so influenced by the authors that I loved that all my stories were sort of fan fiction. But yeah, if there are any fan fiction writers out there that want to take any of my characters, go for it. What I tried to do in my last 3 books. I got to do it in Heartbreak Homes. Was that there's actually, for people who've read Blood Will Out and the Grey Sisters, there's sort of like Easter eggs where it links the 3 books together. It doesn't really link the books together. It links the towns together. So in my mind, when I started writing the Grey Sisters, I'd already written Blood Will Out. The town that the characters are from, Campbellton, is very close to Dempsey Hollow, which is where the Blood Will Out characters are from. And I think it got edited out of the Grey Sisters, but I'd linked those 2 books. So in Heartbreak Homes, I was finally able to link Dempsey Hollow, Campbellton, and Lincoln, which is the town that Heartbreak Homes takes place in, together. So in my mind, geographically, they're all quite close together. And that makes me happy. Yeah.
I love that. So with this book, it marked your move from Penguin. You were publishing with Penguin to Nimbus. What has your experience been working with a more independent, locally focused publisher?
Yeah, it's really, so far it's been fantastic. It's great. I already knew my editor as sort of as a friend, and she has become an even closer friend. So that speaks to her powers as an editor. I'm a huge supporter of literature that's coming out of Atlantic Canada. We're sort of like the stepchildren or something of the Canadian literary community, I feel like. But I think that there's so much excellent work coming out of here, and the rest of Canada is waking up and opening their eyes and seeing what we're producing, and so that's really exciting.
The readers are noticing more and paying attention.
Absolutely. Yeah. On a more, sort of nationwide basis.
Yeah, we're not an afterthought anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're part owner of Block Shop Books.
I am. I'm the co-owner. Yep.
So you're on the both sides of the book coin.
Yes.
How has that kind of affected, if at all, your writing, also owning a bookshop?
I had a dream when I opened the bookstore that it was going to be this sleepy little bookstore, and that I'd take my laptop and I'd get to work on books. And it's not a sleepy little bookstore. It's a very busy bookstore. I bring my laptop to work all the time, but I've never really been able to write when I'm at work, unfortunately. So, but it means that my whole life is pretty much about books and creativity, and so I think that's had an effect on my writing, because I just feel like I'm submerged in this creative environment, and it's a really special life to live a life in books as a writer, a bookseller, a reader. I really can't think of anything more beautiful than that.
And this is coming from someone who's done all of the things, because you had a label, you've done so much in your life. But this is the dream.
Writing was always the dream. Music is a huge has always been a huge part of my life. So it was great, like being in that world as well. But art has always been my thing, and my therapy and my sanctuary and all the rest of it. And the thing that makes me truly happy, there's lots of things that make me happy, my children and my friends and all that. But if I'm not writing, I'm not 100% happy. I have to be working on something. And it's been that way since I was like 6 years old.
Well, Heartbreak Homes, I've read a couple of your other books, but Heartbreak Homes was my favorite. So in my opinion, you're just getting better. I can't wait to see what you write next. Are you working on anything?
I am. I'm working on 2 things. I'm working on another psych thriller that's set in 1984. And this is my first adult book.
Oh.
So it's sort of the punk scene and punk communes and squats, with a psych thriller element. And then I'm also working on I haven't told anybody this yet, but I'm working on a sort of like within the genre of suspense, but I want to write another horror that has a supernatural element. So I'm working on a young adult book.
So you're going to have your toes in every single type of genre you can now. It's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think every book has to challenge me, or I can't stick with it long enough to finish it.
So you're starting to write something geared more towards adults. What kind of changes when you're writing for adults instead of YA?
I don't really know, because I usually don't really categorize my writing. YA is sort of a new categorization. Just 20 years ago, it would have just been like adult lit, like coming of age, but it would have been adult literature like Catcher in the Rye and David Copperfield, and all those books are just like adult lit, right? So I don't really, as a writer, I don't think I really think like, oh, I write YA. It's a very successful market, and so I think that's why it's endured. YA books sell a lot. So as far as publishers are concerned, it's like a good market to be in. So with the adult fiction, the only difference, I guess, is that the themes are a little bit darker. Like I can kind of go there, be a little scarier, where I feel like I have to hold back a little bit, although I don't feel I hold back that much when I write YA.
No.
No, I know. I mean, I've sort of, I have a big adult readership, and probably part of the reason is that I don't really pull my punches too much.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes a good YA is when you can hit both teenagers and adults and we all find something exciting in it.
Yeah, I mean, YA it takes risks. If you look at like the breadth of YA, like how it defies genre and how it defies even like classic structure, but it's an exciting place to write in.
So what makes you want to champion a book as a bookseller? What are the things that make you excited to tell people about a book?
Oh, they're the books that like really speak to me. I have books that I hug when I read them and after I finish reading them, and then we just have those special books. For someone who comes in and says, I want something that like fills my heart, makes me think, will stick with me. I know those books. They're the ones that do the same for me, and those are the ones I recommend.
So what would you recommend to somebody who said that right now?
So there's a few. There's The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune is one of those books that you want to hug. It's queer, it's charming, has elements of fantasy, it's whimsical, it's just warm-hearted. Fane by Anne-Marie MacDonald just came out. Just love that book, like total genre-busting, epic. The characters just live and breathe. Just a beautiful, like a masterpiece, I think. Still Life by Sarah Winman. That's a historical that follows a soldier after the Second World War and an art historian, how their lives sort of move apart and then come back together again. And it just reminded me of what humans are capable of and like how wonderful humans can be.
Do you have any YA recommendations?
So many.
What's the last one that really
blew my mind?
Yeah.
I just read a book called In the Wild Light by Jeff Sentner that I really loved. That it's a boarding school book. I'm not a huge boarding school fan, which is actually kind of a thing in like YA. You could blame Harry Potter probably for that. But I just thought the characters were like so complex and like flawed and beautiful. And it was just a real like sort of punch to the heart book. I thought it was great. I loved Decoding Dot Gray, which I think you guys have something to do with. I just thought it was like such if you want to apply a narrow categorization to YA, which I don't think anyone should do, but it just felt like it felt like a big book, complex. And I thought that the character of Dot Gray was fantastic.
She did an amazing job.
Yeah. I think she got really close, Nicola Davidson, I think she got really close to the truth of that character.
We did the podcast with her, so go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah, so cool.
And you have an excerpt for us? Did you want to read something?
Sure, I'll read a very short excerpt. So this is sort of 50 pages in or so, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of setup with the classic murder mystery, where I'm introducing you to all the suspects and et cetera. And so this is when Frankie has become a little concerned because her friend Jessa, who she's gone to the party with, who's her best friend, Jessa's crushing on a boy, and Frankie's sort of there for emotional support. She's become concerned because she hasn't seen Jessa, and Jessa seems really inebriated. So she and Martin go upstairs to the bedroom where Jessa is with Mel, and they break down the door. This is what they find. Lanterns gleamed on the windowsill, candles flickered on the mantel. A cold breeze came through an open window. I could smell something alien mixed in with the jasmine scent of the candles, rusty like a bag of old nails. I caught sight of my reflection in the window, pale and crazied by the dancing shadows. A small decorative table was in pieces on the floor next to a heap of clothes, but it wasn't. It was Jessa, sprawled out as if she'd hit the ground hard. The mirror was smashed, and splinters of silver peppered the carpet. I fell to my knees. I didn't care if I cut myself, and reached for her slack hand. Her eyes were closed. Blood trickled down her forehead. Had she knocked herself out? I tapped her cold cheeks, noticing with relief that she was breathing, so slow and deep it was almost imperceptible. "Jessa, wake up." Nothing. I eased her into an upright position, bracing her body against mine. Her head lolled as if her bones had dissolved. "Martin, she's not responding." I fumbled my phone one-handed, tried to unlock it with clumsy wooden fingers. "Martin, help me." Behind me, I heard him breathe in and out in short, quick gasps. I turned my head. Martin was standing over by the bed. "Martin?" He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing mutely, as if it were hinged like a ventriloquist's puppet. It was then I noticed the dark mass on the white sheets in the middle of the bed. I laid Jessa gently down and stood up to get a better look. It was Malcolm Bradley. One blue eye looked up at the ceiling. The other was a bloody wreck.
Ooh, shivers. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
I love talking about this book with you. I love the book.
Yay.
Yay. Everybody get it. Read it. Heartbreak Homes by Jo Treggiari is available now everywhere books are sold. And thank you for listening and hanging out with us. Join me next time on this book lover's journey as we try to read more, read Canadian, read local. You know, all the good things.